Hi there, today I'm going to show you how I made this graduation card. It's kind of a fun fold card. It pops open like this, and I've added a little envelope that I created with the diagonal plate, scoring plate, so that I could insert some cash or a check as a gift. Okay, so we're going to begin with a piece of basic black cardstock, and this measures 9 3/4 by 4 1/4, and I'm just going to place it on my scoring tool. And I am going to, you can see I've got the marker set at 5 1/2. I want to have it scored here at 5 1/2, which I had already done. Then we're going to get our diagonal plate, and we'll set that on top because this 5 1/2 inch line is not in the center. You want the smaller section on the left side of your scoring tool. And then my other marker is placed here at 2 1/8, and that is where we're going to score on the diagonal. So I'm going to go ahead and score all the way across, and then you're just going to flip your cardstock over like this, and we'll do it again on this other side. Okay, so there's all of your score lines. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to mark, this is your smaller section, scored section. We're going to want to mark the halfway point here on this one end, and that will be at 2 1/8. So I'm just going to line this up on my grid paper here, and I'm just going to take a pencil and mark this, just put a little pencil mark there at 2 1/8. Okay, then I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and we're going to cut this top edge so that it has the point that we need for the graduation cap. So I'm taking this small section where I just marked with the pencil mark, and this is my center point. Not sure if you can see that on the video or not, but I'm going to put that right in the cutting track. You can see right where this cutting track is here, and I'm going to match that up to the cutting track, and then I'm going to slide this diagonally scored edge over here into where that track line is for the cutting blade. I just want to make sure that they are both lined up in that cutting track. So I've got my little pencil mark here and the edge of the scoring line there, and then I can take my trimmer and just cut that corner off. So that's one side, and then we're going to turn it around and do the same thing. Here's my scored edge, and then here's the pencil mark. Match that up, line that up in the track of the cutting blade, and just trim that off, and so now you have your point. Okay, so now I'm ready to show you how to create this pointed liner that's going to go inside of this folded card base. You're going to start with this piece of white cardstock, and we want to try to find that center point again. We're going to do basically the same thing that we did on that card base. So I'm going to find the center point. This measures 4 inches across, so the center point here is 2 inches. So I'm going to put a little pencil mark there, and then I'm going to actually just use my grid paper, slide this over. I'm going to line this up on the 10-inch line. I've got it lined up on the 10-inch line because I know 8 inches is just 2 inches shorter, and we want to mark this at 2 inches. But because I've got this center line on my grid paper that's a little bit darker, it's easier for me to see. So I'm going to do a pencil mark here and here. Now I can get my trimmer, and I'm just going to line this up the same way that I did. I'm going to take those little marks. There's my pencil mark here, and then I'm going to swing this one up here to the cutting track again. Make sure those are lined up. And there's the first point, and then I'll do the same thing on this other side. So there's your point for the inside of the card. Okay, now while I'm at this, you can see I've got 2 little stripes running down here at the bottom, and the way that I created that was by just trimming off a little bit of the end of this liner. So what I did was I just trimmed off 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. So there's your little 1/8 inch strip. I did that again for space. We're actually going to discard this 1/8 inch section, because I only need one, and then I'm going to trim it again at 1/2 inch. Okay, now I'm going to save these two pieces. Those are going to create my stripes when I go to attach this to the inside of the card. Okay, so while we're scoring and trimming, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I made the little envelope. And it's just a 4x4 square of designer paper. I'm using Summer Starfruit. And I have this one is actually already scored, but I want to show you how to do it. I have this marked at 1 7/8, and I'm going to take the wider ball of my stylus so that it doesn't puncture the paper, and I'll just score this on the diagonal at 1 7/8 along every side. So you just keep turning your designer paper and score all 4 sides. Just like that. Okay, so we've got our scored designer paper, and this is basically a template to show you kind of how that looks. These are the score lines, and then on each of these sides there is a little triangle where the score lines cross, and we're just going to snip those little triangles out on each side. So I'm just using my paper snips, and I'm just going to snip those little notches out. Okay, so this is what it should look like. And then I'm just going to fold along all of those score lines. Okay, and then what I'm going to do to assemble this, I just want the 3 sides together, and there's just a very fine little overlap here. So I am going to use the liquid glue just along these edges of the 2 side flaps. And you just do a really narrow line of the glue. I love this glue because you can do that. You can get a really fine line of glue, and then we'll just fold this up and attach it. So now our envelope is together, and with this last flap, because I want them to see that there is money in there, I'm just going to fold this back and adhere that to the back side with a little snail adhesive, and then it's ready to go on the inside of the card. Okay, so now I want to show you how I created the tassel, and I used the Summer Starfruit 3/8 inch stitch satin ribbon. And the way we get this all to fringe like that is by taking, this is just an 8-inch piece of satin ribbon. I'm going to fold it in half, and on the end where the fold is, I'm going to tie a knot. And you just want that knot as close to that folded edge as you can get it. Okay, then I'm going to take my paper snips, and I'm going to cut just this one edge in between the first white stitched line and just the outside edge of the ribbon, cutting all the way up to where the knot is. And then I'll just snip off this little edge here up at the top. Okay, and once you've done that, then you can just start fraying that ribbon. You see how that just pulls out? And just keep pulling those threads until you can't get it to fray anymore. Okay, so when you get as many of the threads pulled as you can and it stops fraying, then you can just trim this little end off right up at the top to finish that. Okay, and then you'll do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble this card. So I'm going to take this black card base, and I am going to fold along every score line. And I really want to crease these well, so I'm going to use my bone folder after I break down these folds. I'm going to use my bone folder, and I actually am going to do this both directions so that it really creases it well. Okay, Okay, so I have my liner, and I'm gonna stamp this little happy graduation sentiment from the Teeny Tiny Wishes set up here at the top. And I like to use, I'm using StazOn, black StazOn, but I like to use my Stamp-A-Majig because I don't like things crooked, and I tend to do that lately. So I'm gonna just use the positioner to get that into place. So there's my sentiment. And then I'm just going to use snail adhesive to attach this to the inside of the card. You can see I messed up the first side, which is why I got my Stamp-A-Majig out. And then I'll just place this in. I like to leave like 1/8 of an inch black border around the edges. So I have that in place. And then I'm just going to come back and get these 2 little strips that I cut off of the end of this earlier. And I'm going to use the liquid glue for this little narrow 8-inch strip. And then I'll attach this to the inside of the card here, just about 1/16 of an inch away from where that ends. And then this 1/2 inch piece is wide enough that I can just use snail adhesive on it. And I'll put that again about 1/16 of an inch away. Okay, and I have already die cut using the Typeset Alphabet Big's die. I've already die cut the year. So I have my numbers, and I'm going to attach those with the liquid glue as well. Now we'll go ahead and do the top half of this card. I'm just going to use my StazOn again to stamp this little congratulations circle onto Summer Star Fruit. And then I'll use my 1-inch circle punch to punch that out. I've got the 1 1/4 inch scallop circle. I'm just going to punch a scallop circle out of black cardstock. And then I'm just going to use a glue dot to attach those. Okay, and now on the outside of this is we're going to want to put this tassel in first before we start decorating the inside. So I want to put this tassel on, but what I want to do is try to cover up some of this excess ribbon. So instead of just inserting a brad, I'm going to use the 1/2 inch circle punch, because my brad is not quite that wide, and it will cover up, when I put this over, it'll cover up some of that extra ribbon. So I am going to go ahead and punch a hole. I'm just using a paper piercing tool to punch a hole in the center of that 1/2 inch circle, and then I'm going to insert this black glimmer brad. So that's ready to go. And then I'm just going to take my the top of my cap. I want to find the center point and poke a hole through the center of the ribbon, that little end of the folded end of the ribbon, and the cap. And then I'll take my brad with that 1 inch or 1/2 inch circle on it and poke that through. And just put that all the way through there and pull it out, and then you can open up the tabs on the back. So I've got a square of white cardstock, and I'll just attach that with snail adhesive. Then I'm going to attach our little mini envelope, and again I'm just using snail. Okay, just like that. And I'm just going to use a couple of glue dots to attach this little congratulations. And then I just used a glue dot to put the diploma on. And there's your finished card.